I was on my own couch in my own living room, thinking my life was boring in all the right ways when my best friend walked in looking like someone had died. Turned out something had. Name's Daniel Harris. Mid-30s, average build, decent job, one mortgage, one wife, and up until that night, I thought that was the whole story. Predictable, stable, nothing dramatic except the occasional argument over laundry or late bills. It was a Thursday, fading into evening. TV was on low, some game rerun I wasn't really watching. The house had that normal background soundtrack. Dishwasher humming, a car passing outside, the faint smell of whatever candle Rachel had been obsessed with that week. I remember thinking how ordinary it all felt. Solid. Boring in a way I was proud of. Then the door opened without a knock. Chris Miller walked in. I've known him since college. A guy who usually has a joke ready before he even says hello. That night, no joke. He just stood in the doorway for a second, shoulders tight, eyes a little wild, like he'd just seen something he couldn't unsee. "Hey," I said, halfway turning from the TV. "You look like crap. Are you good?" He didn't answer. He paced once across the room, ran a hand through his hair, then dropped onto the edge of the couch like his legs gave out. The silence got heavy fast. "Chris," I tried again. "What's going on?" He looked at me and I knew then, whatever it was about me. "I wasn't gonna say anything," he started, voice rough. "I told myself it was none of my business. But I couldn't sleep last night. And I can't just not tell you." My stomach tightened, but my brain was still slow, still dumb, still believing in the safe little bubble I lived in. "Tell me what?" He swallowed. "I saw Rachel last night." "Okay," I said. "So?" "At a bar on Jefferson." I almost laughed. Maybe she grabbed a drink with coworkers. "You know how, Danny." His voice cut through mine. "She wasn't with coworkers." He held my eyes, and there was no way around it anymore. "She was with some guy. They were pressed together, kissing. Not some friendly peck, man. The kind of kissing you don't make mistakes." It hit like a physical shot. My chest went tight, like someone had cinched a belt around my ribs. My hands went sweaty. The room didn't spin exactly, it just narrowed. The TV blurred into background noise, his words replaying on loop. "No," I said too quickly. "You're sure it was her? Maybe it just looked like." "I know your wife," he snapped, then lowered his voice. "I know Rachel. I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't sure." My mind started grabbing for loopholes. Maybe they were drunk. Maybe it was some old friend. Maybe he misread it. Maybe. I opened my mouth, then shut it. For a couple of seconds, all I could hear was my own heartbeat in my ears. Chris leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I don't want to be right about this, but I am. I'm sorry." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat back against the couch, staring past the TV, feeling something crack quietly inside my chest. The perfect life didn't explode that night. It didn't need to. It just split, clean down the middle, and I knew, even if I tried to tape it back together, it would never be the same again. I didn't say much after that. There wasn't anything to say. I just sat there in my own living room, next to my best friend, realizing that without me noticing, a fault line had formed under my marriage, and now it had finally opened. Dinner that night looked the same as every other Thursday. Rachel sat across from me in her usual spot, hair pulled back, fork tapping the edge of her plate as she talked about some coworker who'd screwed up a report. She complained about traffic. She mentioned a new skincare thing she'd ordered that was supposed to fix everything, like the last 10 hadn't. I nodded in the right places. I chewed. I swallowed. On the outside, I was the same husband I'd been for years. On the inside, I was replaying Chris's voice on a loop. I saw Rachel last night, kissing. The kind you don't mistake. Every time she smiled, my stomach tightened. Every time she laughed, it sounded a little too loud, a half-step forced, like she was auditioning for the role of normal wife, and waiting to see if I'd noticed the cracks in her performance. I started seeing things I'd never bothered to see before. The way she kept her phone screen tilted away from me when it buzzed beside her plate. The slight pause before she answered a simple question. The way her eyes slid off mine a fraction of a second too early when I said, "Love you," out of habit. None of it, on its own, was proof of anything. Before that day, I would have shrugged it off. Everyone gets distant sometimes. People have moods. Life gets busy. But once someone drops the word cheating into your living room, normal details stop being normal. They turn into evidence. Or at least suspects. After dinner, she went to the couch and scrolled through her phone, laughing at something on social media. I sat in my chair and watched the TV, not seeing a second of it. In my head, I kept walking back and forth between two doors. Confront her now, or keep my mouth shut until I knew for sure. If I accused her and was wrong, I'd stain everything for nothing. If I waited and she was guilty, I'd have to live with the fact that I'd shared a bed with a liar while pretending I didn't know. That night, lying next to her, I stared at the ceiling long after her breathing settled into that slow, sleeping rhythm. I realized I wasn't the man I'd been that morning. Something in me had shifted. I wasn't going to beg, guess, or scream in the dark hoping she told the truth. I was going to find it. By the time the first gray light of morning seeped through the blinds, the decision was made. I track her car. Quietly. No accusations, no drama, no raised voice. If my wife was living a second life, I was done being the only one in the dark. The idea of a GPS tracker didn't feel crazy anymore. It felt like the only way left to respect myself. I woke up feeling like I'd been running all night. Not from anything I could see. Just that kind of tight breath, heavy-chested exhaustion you get when your brain never actually shuts up. Rachel left early for work, kissed my cheek, said, "Don't forget we need groceries," and walked out the door like nothing under our roof was broken. I watched her taillights disappear down the street, then went back inside and stared at my untouched coffee until it went cold. Around 10, I grabbed my keys and drove. I didn't go to some big chain store. I picked a small automotive electronics shop across town, the kind of place that sells backup cameras, dash cams, and stuff nobody asks too many questions about. I parked around the corner like I was doing something illegal, which, in a way, I was, just not in the way the law cares about. On the walk up, I rehearsed the lie. It's for my company car. It's for deliveries. It's for my brother. Anything but the truth. It's for my wife, who I don't trust anymore. Inside, it smelled like plastic, cardboard, and stale coffee. A guy in his 40s with a name tag that said Ray looked up from behind the counter. "What can I help you with?" "I need a vehicle tracker," I said. My voice sounded steady, like this was normal. Small. Real-time. Something I can install myself. He nodded like he heard that twice a week. Maybe he did. He pulled out a small black device in a plain brown box and rattled off features I barely absorbed. App access, battery backup, location history. I just watched the box. "How are you paying?" he asked. "Cash." I handed it over, refused the receipt, shoved the box into my jacket, and walked out. Felt heavier than it should have. Like it came preloaded with every answer I'd been afraid to get. That night, after dinner, she went to shower. I waited until I heard the water running, then grabbed the spare key and slipped into the garage. My heart was beating in my throat. I opened her car door, popped a couple of panels on the center console with the cheap plastic tool I'd brought, and found a nest of wires tucked out of sight. Hands shaking just enough to annoy me, I slid the tracker into the gap, secured it, and closed everything back up. From the outside, the car looked untouched. The shower turned off. I froze, listening. A few seconds later, I heard the creak of the kitchen door. I wiped my hands on my jeans, walked inside like I'd just come from the trash can. "Have you seen my hairbrush?" she called from down the hall. "Bathroom counter," I answered, voice calm. At that moment, I realized something simple and ugly. I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was a stranger in my own house. Someone who watched instead of trusted, who spied instead of asked. And I knew there was no going back from that. The app on my phone became a second set of eyes. On the first day, I checked it every hour. Little Dot at her office during work, Little Dot heading home after. She pulled into the driveway at the usual time, came in complaining about her boss, kissed my cheek, and asked what I wanted for dinner. Routine. Boring. Safe. Second day, same thing. Work. Home. Gym for 40 minutes, back again. I watched the dot move on the map like I was tracking a delivery, not my own wife. Every normal stop chipped away at the certainty I'd built from Chris's words. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he misread it. Maybe I was the problem now. The third day, the pattern held. I started to feel stupid, paranoid, like one of those guys on forums who see ghosts in every text message. I caught myself almost deleting the app, almost telling myself I'd overreacted. But I didn't. On the fourth evening, everything changed. I was on the couch when she walked into the living room wearing a blue dress I hadn't seen in months. Hair done, makeup on, perfume strong enough to hit me from halfway across the room. "What's the occasion?" I asked. She smiled, casual. "Girls' night. Amanda and some of the others. We're just gonna hit a bar, blow off some steam. Don't wait until it gets late." I nodded like that made perfect sense, like I wasn't already hearing alarm bells in my head. "Have fun." She left. I gave it 3 full minutes, watching the clock, listening to the house settle around me. Then I grabbed my keys. In the car, I opened the app. The dot moved steady across the map, heading downtown. No detours, no hesitation, just a straight line. A few minutes later, it stopped. Right near Jefferson. Right near the bar Chris had mentioned. I parked 2 blocks away, pulled a cap low over my eyes, and killed the engine. From where I sat, I could see the bar's entrance, people flowing in and out under the neon. My phone screen glowed in my hand. The dot sat still. That feeling in my chest, dread and certainty mixing into something almost calm, told me what I already knew. Tonight, I was going to get my answer. From my spot on the street, I watched her walk into the bar alone. Blue dress, heels, hair catching the neon light as the door swung shut behind her. The sidewalk was alive with music, laughter, people yelling to each other over the noise. I sat in the dark, engine off, hands on the wheel, feeling like a ghost watching the living. The minutes dragged on. I checked the app. The dot didn't move, still locked on the bar. Every time the door opened, my eyes went up. Couples here, groups there, smokers stepping out and back in. Then, about half an hour later, I saw her. She came out with him, tall, leather jacket, that loose, easy walk like the world's always made room for him. Jake Collins. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew what he was. Familiar. Their bodies moved too close not to have history. They didn't head toward the main street. They drifted toward the side lot, where the light from the bar barely reached. I got out of my car and followed at a distance, keeping to the darker edges, the way you do when you're not sure what you're going to do yet. They stopped at a parked sedan near the back, one of those forgotten cars nobody looks twice at. She glanced around once, quick. Then he opened the door and they climbed in. I stood there, half hidden behind another vehicle, watching the outline of my wife in someone else's car. A minute passed, then another. The car started to move just a little. A rhythm. The windows fogged. 2 shapes shifted inside in a way you don't need imagination for. There was no angle where this could be innocent, no friendly conversation that made a car rock like that. The last bit of denial burned out. Something hot surged up through my chest. I didn't think so. My body just moved. I walked straight up to the rear of the car and slammed my fist against the back window, hard enough to make my knuckles sting. The movement inside stopped like I'd hit pause. For a second, nothing. Then the rear window slid down halfway, and there she was. Rachel. Hair messed up, breathing hard, dress not where it should have been. Her eyes found my face and went wide in a way I'll remember until I'm dead. I felt calm. No screaming, no crying. Just this cold, bitter clarity settling over everything. I started clapping. Slow, deliberate. Each clap echoing in that dead little corner of the lot. "Bravo," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Really, hell of a performance. The guy, Jake, bolted out the other door, pants half done, not even looking at me. He disappeared into the dark like the coward he was. She scrambled to pull her dress down, mumbling something, reaching out like she could explain this away. I didn't listen. I'd already seen everything I needed to see. I turned my back on the car, on her, on whatever story she was about to spin, and walked away. The marriage didn't end when the papers were signed. It ended right there, in that parking lot graveyard, to the sound of my own slow applause. I didn't go home that night. After the parking lot, I just drove. No destination, no music, just the sound of the engine and my own breathing. At some point past midnight, I pulled into a cheap roadside hotel, paid cash for a room that smelled like old carpet and cleaning spray, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall. There was no dramatic breakdown, no punching the mirror, just a quiet, steady realization. This is done. Somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning, I started making a plan. Lawyer, time off work, logistics. I thought in terms of boxes and signatures, not feelings. I decided I wasn't going to stick around to hear her version, or let her cry on the same shoulder she'd just betrayed. I'd remove myself from the blast zone and let the pieces fall where they wanted. Around sunrise, I drove back to the house. She wasn't there, her car gone, probably out looking for me or pretending nothing had happened yet. I walked through the front door like a guest, not a husband. The place felt different. Same furniture, same photos on the wall, but the warmth was gone. Just walls and objects now. I packed fast. Clothes, important documents, a few personal things that mattered to me more than they ever had before. Half the closet went into bags. My side of the dresser emptied. Toothbrush gone from the bathroom sink. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand. By the time she came home later that morning, I was already gone again. She called, over and over, then texts. Where are you? Can we talk? Please answer. I'm sorry. Please. I blocked her. Not to be petty. Not to punish. I did it because I needed oxygen, and every call was her trying to drag me back into a burning house. While she sat on our couch, staring at the space I used to fill, I sat in a lawyer's office, signing the first papers to end our marriage. The house we'd shared was now just a building with some of my fingerprints left behind. Nothing there belonged to me anymore except the silence. I didn't understand how it all started until much later. Back then, all I had was the image of a car in the shadows and my wife inside it. But if you want the full story, you have to rewind to months before that night, when the fuse was being quietly lit at a table I wasn't sitting at. Rachel had been drifting for a while. I can see it now. Conversations shrinking down to logistics, bills, schedules, errands. A lot of we should talk that never turned into actual talking. I thought we were just in a long, dull stretch of marriage. Happens to everyone, right? While I was telling myself that, she was telling someone else something different. Amanda Brooks, her best friend, the one who knew every fight we'd had, every insecurity Rachel carried. They'd meet for long lunches and share a bottle of wine when they should have been back at work. That's where the story twisted. One lunch, after enough wine to loosen truth and blur judgment, Amanda dropped his name. Jake Collins, the ex, the what-if from Rachel's past. According to what I learned later, Amanda said something like, he asked about you, says he never really got over you. I want to know if you're happy. You don't say that to someone who's already feeling invisible in her own house if you care about the marriage she's in. From there, it was predictable. Just text him, no harm. Then, just coffee. Then, you deserve to feel alive again. Every step sounded small, forgivable, temporary. Except none of it was. Rachel made her own choices, no excuses for that. But Amanda's words didn't just nudge. They shoved. She didn't pour water on a marriage that was running hot and tired. She poured gasoline on it and handed Rachel the match. After I disappeared from Rachel's daily life, her world didn't just go quiet. It broke. I didn't see it firsthand, but word gets around. Mutual friends talk. Pieces of conversations find their way back. Eventually, I got the story of what happened next, and it filled in blanks I didn't know were there. A few days after I left, Rachel went looking for Jake. Not dressed up this time. No blue dress, no perfume. Just a wrecked woman walking into a low-key bar where he liked to hide from his own life. She wasn't there for romance. She wanted answers. From what I was told, she sat across from him, eyes swollen, voice low, and asked the one question that actually mattered. Did any of this mean anything to you? Or was I just a distraction? Jake could have lied, could have played the hero, blamed everything on me. He didn't. He told her the truth. Amanda had reached out to him first. Said Rachel wasn't happy. Said she still thought about him. Painted me as the distant husband who'd let her slip away. Amanda set the table, laid out the history, and then sent out the invitation. Jake admitted he still had feelings for Rachel, old habits, old comfort. But sitting there now, with the damage done, he could see the bigger picture. He'd walked into something that wasn't just about two people reconnecting. It was a setup that betrayed three people at once. Me, the husband who'd never been given a chance to fix what was broken. Rachel, who'd chosen the worst possible way to deal with her pain. And even Jake himself, who realized he'd been used as a wrecking ball. He told her our marriage had probably been running on fumes for a while. But instead of pulling over and saying, "We're empty," they just decided to crash it. In that moment, in that bar, the roles shifted. Jake stopped being just the villain. Rachel stopped being just the traitor. Amanda stopped being just a friend. Everyone had blood on their hands. By the time I agreed to see her, the rage was gone. Not forgiveness. Not even close. Just empty space where the constant burning used to be. Weeks had passed since the parking lot. The papers were moving. My life had a new, rough shape to it, half-formed but mine. She'd tried everything to reach me. Calls from unknown numbers. Emails with subject lines like "please" and "one chance." Mutual friends dropping hints. "She's a mess, man. Maybe you should at least hear her out." For a long time, I didn't bite. Then one night, sitting alone in a half-furnished apartment, I realized something. Avoiding her completely meant she still had control. She still existed in this unfinished space in my head. If I wanted to close the door, I had to actually walk up to it. So I texted from a new number, "We'll meet tomorrow." No heart emoji. No name. Just that. We picked a place that didn't mean anything to either of us. Neutral ground. A small, worn-down cafe that smelled like burnt coffee and old wood. Not the kind of place you bring a date. The kind of place you go when you've got business to finish. I got there early and took a seat in the back, facing the entrance. Old habits from bars and crowded rooms. Never have your back to the door. I wrapped my hands around a mug of black coffee and let it sit there, untouched. Just something solid between me and the table. When she walked in, I recognized her. But not the version of her I'd married. Same face, same hair, but the brightness she used to wear like a default setting was gone. She looked smaller somehow, like somebody had turned the volume of her presence down. She saw me, hesitated, then came over. "Hey," she said softly. "Sit," I answered. We didn't hug, didn't shake hands. Just two people sitting across from each other like strangers with history. For a few seconds, the silence was thick. She stared at her fingers twisted around the cup the barista had just set down. "I'm not here to beg," she said finally. "I'm not going to ask you to come back. I know that's gone." "Good start," I said. A ghost of a smile flickered and died. She took a breath. "I'm here because I owe you the truth, and because you deserved better than the way I ended things." "You ended nothing," I said. "You just burned it and walked away. I'm the one ending it." That hit. I saw it. She nodded slowly. "Fair." Then she talked. She told me about the lunches with Amanda. The long complaints. The wine. The way she'd started describing our marriage like something already dead instead of something sick that could still be treated. She told me how lonely she'd felt. How she missed feeling seen, wanted, excited. How she'd blamed me for all of it instead of opening her mouth and saying, "We're in trouble. I need you." I told myself I was just talking, she said. Just venting. Then Amanda mentioned Jake. She made it sound like fate or something. "He still thinks about you. He asked if you were happy." Felt flattering. Stupid, I know. I let her words hang in the air. No rescue. No, it's okay. It wasn't. "I made the choice," she said. "To text him. To meet him. To go further. That's on me. I won't blame the wine or you or him. I ruined the best thing I ever had." Her eyes were wet. She didn't reach for my hand. She knew better than that. You want to know what cut deepest? I asked. She looked up. Yes. It wasn't the car. It wasn't the kissing. It wasn't even the sex, I said. It was knowing you decided I wasn't your husband anymore long before you took off that dress. You made up your mind, and instead of telling me we were lost, you just kept my ring on, my name, my house, and went and built a second life in the shadows. Her face crumpled for a second, then steadied. You were a good husband, she said quietly. You didn't deserve any of this. You were my wife, I replied, and you taught me two things: what it feels like to really love someone, and what it feels like to finally choose myself when that love isn't respected. We sat with that. She reached into her bag, pulled out her ring, and set it gently in the middle of the table. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, but I need you to know I see it now. All of it. I won't ever do this to anyone again. I believed her. Didn't change a thing. I thought that was it. Clean cut. Final words. Then the bell over the cafe door chimed again. I didn't turn at first, but I felt Rachel stiffen, saw her eyes go sharp and guarded. I looked up. Amanda. She looked like she'd been losing the same amount of sleep I'd lost at the beginning. Makeup couldn't hide the strain. She walked over, hands shaking just enough to notice. I asked her to come, Rachel said, voice low. She has something to say. Amanda sat down like the chair might reject her. She tried to smile. Failed. Daniel, she started. I know I'm the last person you want to see. You're not wrong, I said. Say what you came to say. She swallowed. I need to tell you the truth about all of it. About Jake. About what I did. I let her talk. She admitted she'd reached out to Jake first. That she'd told him Rachel wasn't happy. That she'd floated the idea that maybe he still had a shot. She admitted she'd pushed Rachel, little comments, little digs. You deserve more. He's distracted. You used to glow with Jake. Why? I asked. Why blow up a marriage that wasn't even yours? Her eyes filled, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Because I was in love with you, she said. For years. Watching you be the husband I wished I had. It messed with my head. I kept thinking if things ended between you two, if she realized you weren't right for her, maybe there'd be a chance for me. There it was. Clean. Ugly. Simple. A lot of off moments snapped into place. The strange compliments. The digs at Rachel when she wasn't around. The way Amanda always showed up a little too often when it was just me. I sat back, looked at both of them. You know what's funny? I said. You all spent months talking about me, moving me around like a prize on a board. Husband. Best friend. All playing some secret game I never signed up for. Neither of them argued. I'm not doing it anymore, I said. I stood up, pulled my wallet out, and dropped enough cash on the table to cover all 3 drinks. This doesn't belong to me, I said, nodding between them. The lies, the triangles, the obsession, that's all yours. You can keep it. I'm done carrying it around. Rachel opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. Amanda reached out halfway, like grabbing my sleeve would change anything. I stepped back. I don't need closure, I added. I'm not here to fix anyone. I came to make sure I could look both of you in the eye and still walk away with my head up. Then I turned and left. No dramatic slam of the door. No final one-liner. Just the sound of my boots on worn tile, the weak chime of the bell, and then cold air on my face as I stepped outside. I didn't win by getting her back. I didn't win by making them feel small. I won by leaving all of that twisted mess on that cafe table and walking away with the one thing they couldn't touch. My self-respect intact and finally a little bit of peace.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.